Haiti, October 2010, at a hospital in a small rural town north of the capital. These were the first victims of a horrific unknown disease in a country still reeling from a devastating earthquake. Patients were dying in the space of a few hours. Children were especially vulnerable. Al Jazeera was the first news channel on the scene. In the following days and weeks, we tracked the epidemic as it ripped across the country, leaving dozens, then hundreds, and soon thousands of Haitians dead in its wake. I'd reported from war zones for years, and from Haiti since the day after the earthquake.
They've received 43 bodies.
But this was a new disaster that shocked the world. Cholera had somehow arrived in Haiti. And it wasn't long before rumors that UN Nepalese peacekeepers were involved led us to a base on the banks of the country's largest river.
What are you digging? Why are you digging here? Well, we're not being told exactly what's going on here, but it certainly smells like sewage. There are toilets right there, and the liquid seems to be draining into this river just a few meters away that flows into the nearby town of Mirbalais.
Back then, it felt like we'd stumbled on the scene of a crime. Now, after a series of investigations, including by the UN itself, it seems that's exactly what did happen.
In the more than 2 years since we first visited this site, almost everything that we suspected from the scenes that we found now appears to be true. Scientists have said that the cholera found in that river is almost identical to a strain of the disease found in Nepal before those soldiers were deployed. Even Bill Clinton, the UN Special Envoy to Haiti, has said that UN peacekeepers from that base are the likely source of the disease in Haiti. But the one thing that hasn't happened is that the UN hasn't accepted any kind of liability for bringing the epidemic to this country. In fact, at this point, they still won't even talk about it.
It's been more than 2 years since cholera appeared in Haiti, and we're driving into one of the most isolated areas of the country. Communities up here in the mountains surrounding the Artibonite River are almost completely cut off from basic services. Clinics, running water, even roads here are almost non-existent. Up here, catching any kind of disease is a serious matter. One that kills as quickly as cholera can be a death sentence.
It is impossible, really, to imagine how somebody could get along paths like this to medical facilities within a few hours to save lives from cholera. This is the kind of scenario here. And the reality is that many of them don't, and we're on our way now to a funeral at the very top of this mountain for a man who didn't make it.
When he died from cholera, Farius Eugène was 64 years old. He was a leader of the community in this tiny mountaintop village and a father of 3. Farius fell ill just days ago. From his house, it's about 5 hours walk to the nearest clinic. Farius's neighbors say there have been around 200 cholera deaths in the area since the disease first appeared. As a UN helicopter flies over the funeral, we're told that nobody here has any idea how the outbreak started. As in many of the communities in this region where cholera is rife, death has become a part of everyday life. But that doesn't lessen the grief. Farius's coffin has been carried all the way up the mountain. His eldest son leading the way. They've been running for hours so that the burial can take place before dusk. In villages like this across the country, this is a scene that's been repeated thousands of times. Farius is the latest victim of a disease unknown in Haiti 2 years ago. but that's now a leading cause of death in the country.
Farice's death from cholera won't actually be counted in any official statistics. There are no Ministry of Health personnel who know about this or NGOs. This is just one example of how the death toll from this epidemic could be much higher than anyone knows.